Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Gentlemen, how you doing today? Thank you for the heads up on this video. It was not the next in order, but apparently this is a newer video that Epic History TV put up. Wow, May 19th. Yeah, it is. Less than a month old. And supposedly it's the one chronologically after the one I just did. So thank you for that heads up. I would have messed that up for sure. If you're not subscribed, first of all, if you are subscribed, thank you. There are over 400 of you guys, which is crazy to say. And if you're not subscribed, you want to hang out, learn about history, click that little subscribe button. Just do it. Don't even think about it. Just do it. And let's get into it. Wellington's triumph, Vittoria, 1813. Let's do it.
May 1813. While Napoleon's Grande Armée began its fight back in Central Europe following the disastrous invasion of Russia, 1,200 miles away.
Again, this is like my wake me up video. It's good I'm choosing this one because I'm invested in this series. I want to pay attention, so it's a good one to wake up to. If I seem a little bit tired, but I'm waking up as I always do. Towards the end of the video, I'll be very much awake. So I'll pay attention, don't worry.
At the other end of Napoleon's embattled empire, another enemy was poised to strike. The previous year, Wellington's Anglo-Portuguese army had won a brilliant victory at Salamanca, but been held at Burgos and forced into a long, demoralizing retreat back to the Portuguese frontier. But after a winter of rest, reinforcement and training, Wellington's army was stronger than ever. 100,000 men, many of them battle-hardened veterans. And for the first time, he had sufficient cavalry and artillery, while transport and medical...
That cartoon last episode of Napoleon's, or maybe 2 episodes ago, of the satirist cartoon from the English about Napoleon's cavalry, and it was just men standing with like suits that looked like horses that looked like they were riding them. That was really funny.
Services had also been improved. Morale was sky high. Their chief, known to the troops as Old Nosy, was cheered wherever he went. I never saw the British Army so healthy or so strong, Wellington informed London. In contrast, the French position in Spain was weaker than ever. Napoleon severely underestimated the threat posed by Wellington and had just withdrawn 20,000 French troops for his own use in Germany. As commander-in-chief, King Joseph knew his forces were overstretched. Napoleon allowed him to give up Madrid and move his capital to the more easily defended Valladolid. But withdrawing further to a strong position like the Ebro River was out of the question. That would send the wrong message to neutral Austria and Napoleon's wavering German allies. And so was out of the... But withdrawing further to a strong position like the Ebro River was out of the question. That would send the wrong message to neutral Austria and Napoleon's wavering German allies. And so, with serious concerns, Joseph and his chief of staff, Marshal Jourdan, awaited Wellington's offensive.
Austria doesn't stay neutral for long. I know that for last video.
This video is sponsored by Raid, shadow-led for it'll have plate armor and in all. Raid's turrets with us against a match-required raid. There are... Use the link to Raid. Wellington's plan was for his army to advance in 2 wings, concentrate at Toro, then move against Joseph's forces. In the south, Murray's Anglo-Sicilian Spanish force, based in Alicante, had just repelled an attack by Marshal Suchet at the Battle of Castalla.
Suchet, he's my favorite marshal so far.
Murray would now mount a diversionary landing on the Mediterranean coast to coincide with Wellington's advance and prevent Suchet sending reinforcements north. Wellington had also counted on large-scale support from Spanish regular forces, of which he was, since November 1812, theoretically commander-in-chief. But the Spanish Cortes, based in Cadiz, was deeply divided, with many still highly suspicious of British motives. The result was that Wellington would only receive direct support from a few reliable Spanish divisions. Fortunately, he would receive considerable Spanish support from the guerrillas, now better armed, organized, and operating in greater numbers than ever before. A large area of Valencia had effectively been liberated by El Fraile, the Friar. Esposimina had captured major towns in Navarre and was currently keeping General Clausel's Army of the North busy, while Juan Martín Díaz, aka El Empecinado, was tying down large numbers of French troops near Madrid. On the 22nd of May, Wellington bid farewell to Portugal and began his advance. 4 days later, he was in Salamanca, from where he joined the northern wing of his army under Sir Thomas Graham. Joseph and Jourdan expected Wellington's main thrust to come from Salamanca, so planned to defend the line of the Douro River. But Graham's rapid advance north of the river meant they'd already been outflanked, and they ordered a retreat. By a series of brilliant marches, Wellington continued threatening the French right flank, forcing Joseph to keep falling back. Wellington's army was able to use small roads and mountain tracks north of the main highway, which the French had dismissed as impassable. But thanks to his Spanish allies, Wellington knew better. Backed by British sea power, he was also now able to switch his supply base from Lisbon to Santander, drastically reducing the length of his supply lines, another feat the French had written off as impossible. At the Ebro River, the French found themselves outflanked yet again and fell back to Vitoria. Here, Joseph decided that he must make his stand. The Zadora River valley west of Vitoria seemed to offer a strong defense.
This video is so great because, like, you know when it's about to get ramped up to the next level right
position.
now.
Expecting an attack from the west, French forces were drawn up in 3 lines. General Gazon's Army of the South formed the first line. Then General D'Erlon's Army of the Centre. Then General Rey's Army of Portugal. Joseph hoped that he could at least buy time for the vast wagon convoy assembled east of the city to get away. It contained not only military supplies, but his government's treasury. And as satirized by this contemporary
I love these cartoons.
British cartoon, the accumulated loot.
Bye-bye, don't cry, so my faithful subjects. I'll come back soon as those damned English let me. I have taken a few tokens to remember you by.
Of 5 years French occupation of Spain.
All the wine and women
priceless
and
works of art, jewels and antiques. He also expected General Clausel to arrive with 20,000
they're funny. They're whoever's writing those over in Britain.
Reinforcements any day. However, thanks to the guerrillas, Wellington was better informed of Clausel's whereabouts than Joseph himself. Knowing that Clausel couldn't reach Joseph before the 22nd of June, he decided to attack on the 21st. The day before, French patrols reported enemy troop movement to the north, so Rey's troops were moved to cover any threat to the army's line of communications. Apart from one division, which left to escort part of the wagon convoy to France,
If there's
An
one
odd
thing I've
decision
learned
that
about
deprived-
warfare this series, it is the power of deception. And it might seem obvious, duh, at first, but it just seems so important, so that keep your enemy on their toes and make sure they can't mass all of their forces in the area that you are going to attack. So that's one of the big things I've
the
learned.
army of 4,000 men on the eve of battle. Marshal Jourdan had been bedridden with fever that day. The next morning, he reconnoitred the army's position with King Joseph. They agreed that their position was overextended and should be shortened. But by the time their orders reached General Gazan, it was too late.
Perfect
He was
timing for the
already
British.
under attack.
So you kind of have the worst of both worlds. Like, not only are you more spread out, but I don't know if they were in the middle of moving back to a more secured line, or if maybe they attacked just before they started to.
Wellington, enjoying the advantage in numbers for once, had decided to attack in 4 columns across a 10-mile front, with General Graham's left-hand column threatening Joseph's line of retreat. It was a bold plan, with the potential to trap and destroy Joseph's army, but required careful coordination and precise timing. Fortunately, the French had not thought it necessary to destroy any of the bridges over the Zadora River, which was also fordable in several places. At 8 a.m., General Hill's column began its attack on the Allied right. Spanish and British troops advanced up the western heights of Puebla, driving off French skirmishers and forcing General Gazan to send reinforcements to secure his left flank. Hill's troops then seized the village of Subiana, but French cannon fire and counterattacks prevented any further advance. Convinced that Hill's attack was the main assault and the troop movements to the north.
So green is Portuguese, yellow is Spanish, red is British. Obviously the cannon shapes are the cannons, and these stripes are cavalry. Pretty sure, and just so anyone who doesn't know, I'm pretty sure that is it. I should know more. I should be more confident at this point, but I've been corrected a few times.
North were probably a diversion. Jourdan continued to send troops from the center to reinforce the left. This was exactly what Wellington wanted. But at 11 a.m., he was waiting with growing impatience for his other columns to go into action. Lord Dalhousie's 7th Division, supposed to be leading the attack by the center-left column, had got held up in the mountains. While further east, Graham's flanking move had got off to a cautious start. But seeing the size of the approaching force, General Ray decided to pull back his troops across the Zadora River. This encouraged Graham to get things moving. Colonel Longa's Spanish division advanced on Durana, held by Spanish troops loyal to King Joseph, and a bitter struggle for the village ensued. British and Portuguese infantry advanced against Camara Mayor. They were soon engaged in bloody street fighting with the French. This scene shows an attack by the 4th King's Own Regiment of Foot and the 47th Lancashire Regiment. Though they succeeded in driving the French out of the village, they could not cross its bridge over the Zadora, which was expertly covered by French guns.
Seize the summer at Raymore and Flanagan.
Come on, you
Save
rascals.
10 or 15% off
10 to
everything.
15% off everything. Wow, okay. Come on, ye rascals. Come on, ye fighting villains. General Sir Thomas Picton, British 3rd Division.
Around noon, a Spanish peasant informed Wellington that the bridge at Tres Puentes was completely unguarded. He immediately ordered Kempt's elite light infantry brigade to dash across it and secure a bridgehead. But there was still little sign of Dalhousie's 7th Division. General Picton, the notoriously short-tempered commander of the fighting 3rd Division, ran out of patience. Fed up with waiting for Dalhousie, he ordered his men to advance. They charged across the Mendoza Bridge and a nearby ford, driving back light French defenses. General Gazan, with his left flank pinned down at Subiana, was now about to be outflanked on his right and had no option but to pull back his troops. Wellington's army was now crossing the Zadora River in force. Heavy
Good
fighting
on that.
continued to
I'm going to
rage
go
on
back to this, but who was that guy? Thomas Picton, right?
Wellington's army was now crossing the Zadora River.
Takes one really brave general to start the whole thing.
Heavy fighting continued to rage on the heights of Puebla. But here, the French also had to give ground to maintain the cohesion of their new line. Scottish Highlanders and Connaught Rangers, supported by riflemen and Portuguese troops, now stormed the village of Arigneth, routing the defenders, who retreated southeast. And a gap began to emerge in the French centre between Gazan's army of the south and d'Erlon's army of the centre. The Allied advance continued, with heavy pressure on both French flanks. Wellington's army appeared to be building unstoppable momentum, with Graham's column poised to cut off Joseph's escape.
Does not look good for Joseph.
By 4 p.m., Wellington's army was formed up across the Zadora, ready to strike a decisive blow. But his infantry came under heavy fire from 76 French guns, blasting great holes in their ranks. Allied guns were brought forward to provide support. The biggest artillery duel of the Peninsular War began. More than 70 guns on each side. Allied skirmishers, exploiting the gap in the French centre near Gomecha, were able to work their way behind the French guns and shoot down their crews. Gazan found himself threatened on both flanks.
Would they have to, would they have, not a protractor, I'd like to see, the kind of what the cannon looks like, apart from just the barrel, and obviously put the cannonball in there, stuff it, gunpowder, explode, but in terms of aiming, because I know even nowadays with mortars or whatnot, I think you need a few practice shots and then adjust. And I'm curious, how accurate they really were. An experienced
But
cannoneer.
instead of trying to close up with d'Erlon to his north, on his own initiative he ordered a retreat that left d'Erlon's own left flank completely exposed. Around the same time, Longa's Spanish troops finally captured Durana, and rumors swept the French army that their escape route had been cut. D'Erlon's army of the centre fought on bravely, withdrawing to another new defensive line just 1 mile west of Vitoria. French guns kept up a steady fire on the advancing Allied lines, but once more the position was outflanked. Around 5:30 p.m., King Joseph bowed to the inevitable and ordered a general retreat.
It's crazy how the tides turn. I noticed in the earlier episodes, Napoleon always had reserves. And so whatever the original battlefield looked like, it seemed like there was an unending line of troops on the French side. But now it seems like the longer you look, the more and more Allied troops there are.
As the main road to France had now been cut by Longa's Spanish troops, the army would have to retreat east towards Pamplona along a single narrow road with boggy fields on either side. Bad enough for thousands of troops and
probably
guns,
with guerrillas.
but there had been no attempt to move off the army's enormous convoy of wagons earlier in the day. The result was pandemonium, as military units and artillery tried to force their way through the streets of Vitoria and the congested lanes and fields beyond. The task of forming a rearguard fell to General Reis' Army of Portugal, which conducted an organized withdrawal covered by its cavalry. Wellington hoped that Graham's column would now be surging across the Zadora River to cut off the French army's retreat. But Graham, overestimating the enemy's strength, continued to take a cautious approach. East of Vitoria, the French retreat descended into total chaos. The single narrow road became blocked. Wagons that took to the fields got stuck and were abandoned. Allied cavalry fell upon this confused mass, spreading panic and meeting little serious opposition. King Joseph and Marshal Jourdan themselves narrowly escaped capture.
Oh, I thought they died.
Among the abandoned wagons, many civilians, including officers, wives and children, priceless paintings, jewels and furniture, and more than 5 million gold francs. Troops on both sides broke ranks and dived into an orgy of plundering. One British officer described the scene.
Hey, you, gold over here. Hey, I'm taking this rug. The wife will love it. Booze. Oh, this is a nice dress. Hey, it's you. Oh, God.
About dusk, the head of our column, British officer, described the scene. About dusk, the head of our column came suddenly on some wagons which had been abandoned by the enemy. Someone called out, "They are money carts." No sooner were the words uttered than the division broke as...
It's like, hey, these are money carts. Ooh, they all just do this. Oh,
as if by word of command.
He's like, look, I'm a French officer.
An instant, the covers disappeared from the wagons, and nothing was seen but a mass of inverted legs, while the arms were groping for dollars. For money, it certainly was. The scene was disgraceful, but at the same time, ludicrous. Wellington,
yeah, I can
but
look
at the same time,
look at these two guys over here, like, yeah.
Ludicrous. Wellington, however, was furious. Not only did the plundering delay pursuit of the enemy, but giant sums of cash, which might have paid for his army's supplies, vanished into private pockets instead. Of 5.5 million francs, only 250,000 were ever recovered by the army.
Whoa.
Vittoria was a great victory for the coalition. Not as crushing as it might have been, reflected in relatively light French casualties. But in the chaotic retreat that followed, the Allies did capture all but 2 of 153 French guns, and even Jourdan's Marshal's baton.
Still not quite clear about the Marshal's baton thing. I know I should know it. It's been spoken about a few times, but I'm sure I'll learn more about it in the Marshal's episodes. You have sent me among the trophies of your unrivaled fame the baton of a French marshal, and I send you in return that of England. The British Army will hail it with rapturous enthusiasm. The Prince Regent to Field Marshal Lord Wellington, 5th of July, 1813. A day after 4th of July, when you guys are burning down the White House next year. It's all right, though. Never forget.
French military power in Iberia was broken. The Bonapartist Kingdom of Spain was at an end. Joseph returned to France to face his brother's criticism. Marshal Jourdan retired from active service. Napoleon
I think your brother's got enough on his plate not to really be worried about you.
Marshal Soult to replace them, but even his shrewd military mind could not turn the tide in Spain.
I retract that.
Counterattacks to relieve the French sent Marshal Soult to replace them, but even his shrewd military mind could not turn the tide in Spain. Counterattacks to relieve the French garrisons at Pamplona and San Sebastian were defeated. That autumn, Wellington began what proved an unstoppable advance across the Pyrenees and into France. In southern Spain, where Marshal Suchet remained undefeated, the disaster at Vitoria forced him also to withdraw towards the frontier, leaving behind just a few isolated garrisons. After a bitter 5-year struggle, the Allies had brought
Spain
the
was nuts.
War to the Spanish, their War of Independence, to a victorious conclusion. It had been a long, hard road, steeped in blood and suffering. The alliance between Britain and Spain had been particularly treacherous to navigate. But ultimately, both nations had fought together with Portugal to drive the French back across the Pyrenees. New research provides a clearer insight than ever into the huge attrition of French manpower in Iberia. It's a clearer insight than ever across the Pyrenees. New research provides a clearer insight than ever into the huge attrition of French manpower in Iberia. An estimated total of 260 in Iberia. An estimated total of 260,000 lives lost. 3/4 died of sickness. Of approximately 66,000 deaths from combat.
By the way, people saying, which blew my mind, I'm always like, oh, Russian winter, obviously still formidable, but the fact that more people died in the summer from things, I don't think it was malaria, from just from heat and some sicknesses, killed more people than in the winter. So you could say like the Russian summer killed more than the Russian winter did. That really threw me on my head, and that was crazy. And it's always insane to realize just how many more people tend to die from sickness and disease in war than from actually fighting.
Combat, 43% were in actions against Spanish regular forces, 38% fighting British-led armies, and 19% fighting guerrillas. By contrast, British military deaths are estimated at 52,000. Portuguese 15,000, with many more thousands of civilian deaths, while Spanish deaths are unknown, though the country as a whole
it's got to be an insane amount.
Have lost as many as 500,000 lives in 5 years of war and occupation.
And just, I'm sure, pure anarchy in a lot of places.
For Napoleon, this disaster had been an unnecessary and largely self-inflicted wound. An intervention born of arrogance and false assumptions, with dire strategic consequences. But as the Napoleonic Empire crumbled in Spain, an even greater struggle neared its climax in Central Europe, where Napoleon faced the most powerful coalition of his enemies yet.
You madman.
If the French Emperor was victorious in Germany, Wellington might soon be scrambling back across the Pyrenees. The fate of Europe was about to be decided at the Battle of Leipzig.
This channel is so cool.
Decided at the Battle of Leipzig.
That's next. Guys, thanks so much for letting me know this. Guys, thanks so much for letting me know. You guys are so good in the comments. I can't explain how good and how exceeding of expectations the participation with you guys in the comments, and how good you are at letting me know what to watch next. Thank you. You are. I tend to be pretty lazy, honestly, and the only reason I'm uploading as much as I am is because you guys are so good at letting me know what the next episode is. And of course, I love doing this, and I tend to be less lazy about things when I like doing them, as do most people. So see you guys next time. I'm gonna watch the next one today for sure. So see you then, guys.
Thank you.